Assalamualaikum and a very good evening, everyone and Doctor. We are from Group 3D. We'd like to present our research proposal about the factor influence effectiveness of internal control system. So is the list of our group member, Quratul Aini, me Muhammad Firdaus, Koh Angel and Nur Amira Sofia. So we will start with the introduction and the research background will be presented by Quratul.
Assalamualaikum and good evening. For research background, this research is about factors that affect the effectiveness of internal control system in the bank sector. This research is carried out to know bank manager knowledge on internal control system and factors that influence the effectiveness of internal control system. Bank is one of the finance sector that give an impact in globalization and technology development. Increasing in development will increase the risk that the bank has to manage. Poor management and risk control can lead the banking system, banking sector to the financial crisis. Next. The global financial crisis in 2008 highlighted the importance of a well-functioning and healthy banking sector for macro stability. And lastly, one of the main reasons of banking failure which result in major financial loss and even bankruptcy is due to the high risk taken by the bank management on excessive scale and inability of controlling them. Next, the issue of internal control are common in the banking industry and allow rogue trader to cause huge financial losses to the bank. RD, Camera and Natalie 2014. Internal control is defined as a process carried out by the board of director, manager and other staff of an entity designed to provide reasonable assurance as to achievement of objective related to operational reliability of financial report and compliance with legislation and regulation. Next. Another definition by Lakish 2017 stated that internal control is a control system established by the enterprise authority to ensure that the performance of the enterprise is properly managed in accordance with the established strategy and the insurance the safety and rational use of asset and specifically and accuracy of the accounting data. And the main objective of the internal control process is efficiency and effectiveness of activity and compliance with applicable law and regulation.
So for the problem statement, um, according to the report to the nation 2018 Global Study on Occupational Fraud and Abuse, the Association of the Certified Fraud Examiner 2018 state that employee fraud or occupational fraud is probably the greatest and the most prevalent threat faced by organization. The banking sector is no exception in that it too is involved in issues regarding employee fraud, and this will bring about a negative impact to this sector. In the banking and financial service sector, the median loss to companies worldwide from January 2016 to October 2017 was $110,000 in 366 cases of employee theft, and the sector itself has experienced the largest number cases of employee fraud of 24 sectors. Next. The financial losses faced by the banking sector are not only due to the external factor, but they are also due to the internal control of the organization. It's is a deliberate act by individual or a group of individuals between management, employees, or third parties. Sanusi 2015. And next one, the high employment turnover. Katri 1999 defined that the employee turnover is known as shifting from one organization to another with particular intention. Next. Okay. A survey conducted by Ion Heat in 2015 showed Malaysia's second highest involuntary turnover rate at 6.0% and the third highest voluntary turnover rate at 9.5% in South Asia East. In 2017, the average turnover was 20%, which was considered to be high, and the voluntary turnover represent 14% of the total turnover. Next, we pass to Krotul.
For research question, is there any significant influence or associate between the factor component of COSO model with the effectiveness in internal control system in the banking sector in public sector bank in Malaysia? Next. Research objective, general research objective. The main objective of this study is to determine the factor that influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. The specific research objective to determine if the control environment influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. Second is to determine if the risk assessment influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. Next. The third one is to determine if the control activity influence the effectiveness of internal control system in the Malaysia public listed bank. Next is to determine if the information and communication influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. And lastly, to determine if the monetary influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. Next.
For the contribution of study, first one is to provide exposure toward the management of the public listed bank about the importance of the effectiveness of internal control. And next one is to contribute to provide insight of the components of the internal control system to the auditors. And the last one is to add to the growing number of literature regarding of the effectiveness of internal control system.
Okay, so next I will continue with chapter 2, which is literature review. Okay, so for first independent word is control activity. So control activities based on according to COSO 1992, establish and perform control policies and procedures that act as a tool to ensure the required action to reach the institutional objectives are effectively carried out. Next, the common control activity are such as authorization, segregation of duties, review and proposal, verification, performance planning and evaluations, and others. Okay, so according to View 2017, it carried out a study on factors affecting the effectiveness of internal control system in commercial bank, Vietnam. The paper is investigate COSO-based factors that affect effectiveness of internal control system. The data collected by distributed of surveys to 37 commercial banks during the fourth quarter of 2015 in Vietnam. The results show that control activity has significant influence on effectiveness of internal control system in Vietnam commercial banks. Continue. This study conducted by Mahadin ETAL 2016 that examined the effect of organization internal control system on organization effectiveness in Jordan. The results show that control activity has insignificant effect on organization effectiveness. They also found that control activity is an average important on effect internal control system in Jordan. Next, I will pass to Amira.
Thank you, Angel. So the next independent variable is control environment. Control environment is the basis for all other components in the internal control system that influence the control awareness of all people within the organization. Control environment can be assessed based on integrity and ethical values, board and audit committee, management philosophy, and organizational structure. Karagiorgos et al. 2011 based their study on the effectiveness of internal control system in the Greek bank sector. They investigate the 5 factors in COSO that affect the effectiveness of internal control system. The findings showed that control environment have significant influence on the effectiveness of internal control system in Greek banking sector. The results supported by a few studies that showed the effectiveness of control environment on the banking sector. Karageorgos et al. 2011, Lawson et al. 2017, and View 2016. So the third independent variable, risk assessment. Risk assessment is to identify and analyze the relevant risks that are linked to the objective of business. Risk assessment is now seen in a bigger picture to include business risks, which include environmental and other corporate governance and social responsibility risks. As the managers, they are responsible to inform the management or any responsible employees regarding the changes on risk management and continue to look up the factors that can lead to the risk to create new risks. Next, a study on the effectiveness of internal control system in the Greek bank sector. They investigate the 5 factors in COSO that affect the effectiveness of internal control system. The results show that risk assessment have significant influence on effectiveness of internal control system in Greek bank sector. Next. So the dependent variable internal control system in publicly listed bank. Bank play an important role in the economy as they hold the savings from the public, provide payment for goods and services, and finance the development of the businesses. Internal auditing is an important managerial control device which is directly linked to the entity structure and the basic rules of the business. Next. Khanna and Kavri 2008 studied the implementation of risk-based internal audit in Indian banks. A total of 25 banks, which are all public sector banks, and 6 private sector banks have responded to the questionnaire email. The results show that the banks made sufficient progress in introducing risk-based internal audits. So I will pass to the Angel to explain about chapter 3.
Okay, so I will continue with chapter 3 with methodologies. Okay, so this is our conceptual framework as dependent variable is effector of internal control system and our independent variable, control environment, risk assessment, control activity, information and communication, and monitoring. Okay, so we'll start. Next, I will discuss about the research design. So this paper we are using quantitative method, and our research design is descriptive research design. And the purpose of research design is to collect feedback from manager and staff in middle levels management and internal audit department about factors that influence the effectiveness of internal control system in Malaysia public listed bank. Okay, the next one is sampling method. So our population for this study is public listed bank headquartered in Malaysia, which is in total 10 banks in Malaysia. And the target responder set is sample of 500 manager include staff in middle level management and internal audit department who work in headquarters public listed bank in Malaysia. Okay, the reason why we choosing manager is because the questions require a responder who have a good knowledge and understanding in internal control system. And the second reason we choosing staff in middle level management and internal audit department is as they are in a good positioning to know the answer to the questions since they are in the information is not public available and they are involved in the system. Okay, so the next is data collection. So we are using questionnaire to collect our data. And we are sending email to our respondent. The questionnaire will divide into 2 parts, which are part A, demographic question of respondent, and part B related to 5 main sections representing the 5 components, which is our COSO component. And this study also using 5-point Likert response in questionnaire, which range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. This method has been used in many papers as it is easy for respondent and more reliable when responding from such skill. Okay, next I'll pass to the next presenter.
For the last one, the data analysis. This paper applies a quantity data analysis, which is conducted to know the factor that affect the effectiveness of internal control system in the banking sector by collecting data from the questionnaire. So the result from the respondent were analyzed by using the SPSS presented in the form of mean and standard deviation for each question and each category or section of the questionnaire. In this study, the descriptive analysis is used to answer the research objective. Descriptive analysis characterize the phenomena, answering about who, what, where, and when, and to what extent. Log 2017. In this study, the descriptive analysis is used to indicate the factor that affect internal control system, to indicate that we use the 6-point Likert scale statement. Descriptive analysis also can be used to explain the question in the demographic part. So that's all from us. Thank you.